Hi folks, my name is Pablo. I'm in the product management team for our CSAM and ESM products. Today we have been listening a lot about asset management. So I thought I wanted to drill down more on how to actually extend your VMDR program with a unified attack surface management program. So cyber asset management, right? It's really more than just visibility to the assets. Right? Visibility to the assets is the first step, which is great. But any complete cyber asset management solution needs to also provide information, context about the asset, like who owns the device, who manages the device, and then go beyond just the basic vulnerability management into more aspects of the configuration of the asset, other factors such as tech debt, like your end of life, end of service information, and then being able to aggregate all of this data to provide the risk measuring beyond the vulnerability. So it really supports the VMDR program, but it goes beyond that and also helps create a data layer that can be used across your IT and security solutions so that you can actually effectively integrate those workflows and processes with your IT team and being efficient while they use their own, basically, tools. So there are 4 impact pillars, really, for asset management when I look at this. And I wanted to basically drill down into these aspects and how our customers are being able to leverage our CSAM and ESM solutions on these 4 pillars. The first one is really discovering those gaps on your coverage, right? So ability to discover all of the assets across internal, external, cloud, on-premise, your mobile devices, IoT, OT, discovering those unmanaged devices as well, and then bringing them over to your vulnerability management with context, with additional business context, is the first step, right? So our customers using CSAM have been able to discover, in average, 30% or more assets in their internal networks. So we have about 1,000 customers using CSAM today. And then most of them are already leveraging Cloud Agent passive sensors, integration with third parties. And this is how they're able to bring more assets and then understand that gap that is going on. The second step is an increased number of attacks have been happening on exploitable vulnerabilities on end of support software and then also on hardware, right, on the IoT side. So, and in fact, it is part of many compliance mandates for PCI and even part of the NCSC guideline that you have to make sure that you're proactively monitoring your tech debt, working with IT to create transfer migration, and then basically to be able to upgrade technologies before you go into extended support, really. Our customers using CSAM, and we will get into all of the details on how they're doing this, and I'll show you, are able to proactively manage the end of life and end of support of their hardware and software, and then work with IT to create those plans based on the type of asset and type of technology. The third aspect, and the reason is a separate aspect in here from the internal asset management, is the external attack surface management, right? And the reason is because that is very dynamic, because there is a lot of legacy things, and then of course hackers are going to, first look at these assets that are external. That many times the information is readily available for them to search in tools like Shodan and other tools, basically, right? So many organizations are establishing and in fact creating a role very specific to deal with the external attack surface environment, right? In fact, NCSC guideline says like you have to be able to fix vulnerabilities in 5 days for your external assets, right? So first of all, you need to be able to understand those assets and understand some of the opportunities or some of the things that you could fix even before the vulnerability. Things like, risky ports, legacy or misconfiguration. A database running externally exposed to the internet is not something good. You have to lock that down first, right? So our customers, in average, they have been able to discover 21% more unknown assets in their external attack from their subsidiaries, from their recent acquisitions, or even legacy assets, or some other team, like a marketing team, stands up some account or some website and they leave that behind, right? So there's a lot of legacy also in the external attack surface. And then lastly, you need to be able to augment and improve your CMDB so that there's a better collaboration channel with your IT so that you're sharing the same data, and then hence you're able to reduce the total mean time to remediate working with them with the same data set. So let's drill down into each one of these aspects, how we do it or what we do, right? So the reason we have the most comprehensive asset discovery in the market is, first of all, we have our powerful native sensors, right? Our scanner, virtual, physical, the same scanners that you're already leveraging for your vulnerability management. We leverage the same for CSAM to collect very detailed information about the hardware, the software, and then bring the data. The agents, so the ability that we have with our own sensors to create additional signatures or additional fingerprints for those devices, right? That is the foundation. Then we have our purpose-built external attack surface monitoring, which combines open source technology and sources with our own proprietary technology, which is very dedicated to the external attack surface. And we will get into more details soon. API-based cloud connectors for all the providers to bring all of that data, the metadata about the cloud configuration. And then for some areas that Qualys may not have been fully deployed, we have third-party connectors so that you can query your Active Directory, your CMDB, whether from BMC or ServiceNow or your VMware, to pull that data and then compare that data to the inventory that you have within Qualys, and then determine if there are some assets that are missing. And also, this provides the ability to pull the business context, like from Active Directory or from your CMDB, about who owns the device, the criticality of the device, and then layer that information on top of the inventory. And of course, we have passive sensors, which we have both. We have a network passive sensor, which is a deep packet inspection engine, which is looking at the traffic, understanding how the devices communicate to each other, fingerprinting them for your IT, OT specifically. And then you have the cloud agent passive sensor, which we have seen the demo earlier, which is basically the same agent, which is doing a lightweight passive discovery of the neighboring devices based on multicast and broadcast traffic, right? So with this, you can also turbocharge your VM program within Qualys to bring that business information that I was talking about from Active Directory, from your CMDB, right? Our customers using CSAM, they have been able to automate bringing that information, like for example, what business application of service this asset supports, and what is the criticality of that business application. They automate that information. They automatically create tags in Qualys, and they assign the asset criticality, which is the foundation to calculate the true risk. So our customers using CSAM have been 5 times more effective on doing that process. The second one I want to show you is our ability to manage the test debt comprehensively. So ability for you to understand and monitor what is the current state of your entire end of support software for software and hardware. But more importantly, being able to understand that proactively, 12 months in advance, 18 months in advance, 9 months in advance, depending on the type of technology, working with your IT team to create a plan for them to migrate. So this is one of the areas where IT actually loves the solution, and they sometimes basically share the budget for Qualys because they want to get this information all in the CMDB so they can create basically the reports and the processes to plan for the enterprise architecture process. How do we do this? Because this information is very difficult. That this requirement has always been there, like for years, in any framework or mandate. But it's very difficult to get that information because it's not readily available. Manufacturers and publishers, there's no format, unified format to share that data, right? How we have done this over the last 7 to 8 years, our team has been collected, and we have a process and a very dedicated team that is focusing on collecting our hardware and software catalog and then bringing all of this data in a normalized manner to understand for every software and hardware, enterprise hardware and software, and also open source. What is the life cycle? When the product was released, when the product is end of sale or end of life, when the product is end of support, and what is the type of extended support that they provide. We bring all of that data as part of our catalog, and today we're able to cover like more than 5,000 publishers, more than 300,000 software versions, and we do similar for hardware. And then what we do there is we don't stop there because there's going to be a lot of end of life, end of support software and hardware in your environment. So you want to be able to focus on the one that is most critical based on the exploitable vulnerabilities that are mapped to those software. So we're mapping that software to CPE and then CVE and then our threat intel to bubble up or to help you prioritize which is the critical software or hardware that you need to take care first. So with this, I'm going to go into the first demo here. So as I mentioned, leveraging the same agent, all of the different native sensors, and extending that inventory with external sources, we're able to build that comprehensive visibility about your IT estate, all the hardware, operating systems, different categories. So one of the things that we have put a lot of effort also is normalizing and categorizing and adding a taxonomy so that you can basically simply look at your environment and ask questions saying, okay, show me all of the database servers, for example, leveraging this information. Not the database client, but maybe the database engine running on my server so that I can tag those assets or I can investigate vulnerabilities specifically on my databases. So this is part of, and then as you see here, this is augmenting the lifecycle information. So once we have this, now the question is how do we find things that you have not scanned yet with Qualys, right? So with the agent, if you have the agent deployed already, you can simply activate that agent for the passive sensing discovery. It's as simple as that. And then the agent you can activate this for all your agents. And then the agent will pick one master and one backup within the subnet. Then basically one of them will become the reporting agent. It'll listen to all the broadcast, multicast traffic in the network, detect all the assets, and communicate with the cloud. In the cloud, we will correlate that with the existing inventory. So if assets already exist, it's not going to create duplicate, it's going to merge the information. And then if the asset doesn't exist, it's going to create it in a category that we call unmanaged. From a Qualys perspective, it's an unmanaged device. Right? So this is one of the methods that is available in CSAM. With the agent. And then the other method, as I mentioned, you can use connectors. These are API-based connectors. And these are all one-way connectors. And I will cover, we have a bidirectional sync also with some of the CMDBs. But these are, you can use them as one-way connector, meaning you will connect to BMC, for example, or ServiceNow, or Active Directory, and we will basically do the same thing. We will query the assets, bring them. There are rules in the system where you can say if the asset matches by serial number or MAC address or the combination of them, then basically we'll correlate the asset. We'll bring additional data from Active Directory, like the BU, OU information, and even some other attributes that you can create as custom attributes and bring everything together. So now you can understand across internal, external assets, what are your unknown devices, unknown assets, passive sensing and technology, both the network and the Cloud Agent passive sensor, are very good for OT and IoT devices because they're very chatty in the network and they announce themselves with a bunch of different protocols, and we're able to capture that and then accurately assess the model and the category, etc. Right? You can easily query by source, and you can combine these. For example, I want to see assets that are discovered by the Cloud Agent passive sensor. Maybe it's a Windows device. Then I can also correlate that with Active Directory. I can say if it's discovered by Cloud Agent and also by Active Directory, I can take an action. And this is all real time, right? So this is a layer on top of the rest of the technologies that we support with the Qualys, right? So being real time, you're able to detect that even if the device was later not available in the network. I'm going to drill down here into one Active Directory asset to show you the type of, for every source we can create also custom attributes. So this section you can create additional attributes. For example, one was the last password update on that asset. You can bring those, and then every custom attribute becomes searchable. They're indexed in Qualys, and then you can create tags also based on rules on this data. So going back, I can then, based on criteria, tag the assets, or I can activate them for vulnerability scanning, for example, right here within the same workflow. Or I can deploy the agent if it's an asset that supports the agent, right? Now, the second part we discuss is bringing that additional business context, right? So what are the applications that these assets are supporting? We're pulling that directly from ServiceNow or BMC, or you can even use our webhook API to push that data. And another attribute is like, what is the support group? So we're able to get all of the information, including vulnerabilities, tech debt, risky ports, and then understand who owns these assets. Like, these are risky assets that are owned by the IT ops team. So let's investigate. Here we can see the true risk score. And one of the critical attributes is the asset criticality. One of the key attributes is the asset criticality. In this case, we have pulled this business app from ServiceNow, automatically created a tag, and then automatically assigned a 5 based on the criticality that is stored in ServiceNow. So you don't need to try to figure out this data. Your IT team and your business team are already storing this data. And then we extend that with, as I mentioned, end of support, right? So for example, this asset has an end of support operating system. It has a version of SharePoint. We know exactly when it was end of support. We're going to drill down into it. So we have scored this based on the time. So this is a year old, and also has a bunch of vulnerabilities, some of which are critical. And this information is also correlated with the threat intel. So we know this has like a critical vulnerability that is a season known, exploitable. It's exploited by malware. These are the threat actors that are using that. And guess what? Is on a version of SharePoint that is no longer supported, which means that there's no patches, right? Additionally, another thing to do is ability to create a policy, for example, for my database servers, where I can say some of the security tools are needed. Like this is a scan asset with credentials, but the agent is not there, right? So you can assign a policy that the agent should be there on all your databases, or for example, your DLP agent or your Windows Defender. You can create that policy, and then every time that there is inventory, it'll basically detect and flag that asset. Similarly, some of our customers, even though something like Chrome or Firefox is not something bad, they can create like a rule that says any browser, or maybe Chrome, should not be there on my database server, because somebody has installed that to download something, and they're not updating. It's not going to get updated, and it's showing up on every one of our vulnerability scans, right? So why having that? You can, in fact, create this rule, detect this unauthorized software, whether it's something like simple as Chrome or something else, and then you can even use our agent to uninstall that software, or work with IT to create a ticket and remediate that. Here's the business information that we're putting, assigning attributes, and then you can extend that with custom attributes. And for tech debt, we have a default dashboard with all the details about what software is end of life, what software is end of support, what is the riskiest software. You can use this query here, lifecycle detection score greater than 80 or 90. We have seen SharePoint was greater than 75, I think. And now in the next month, we're going to be releasing a new kind of executive-ready type of report, which is a PDF report that packs all of this information in a shareable, consumable way where you can understand all of your tech debt. What are the key metrics that you can measure, like about hardware, software, operating systems? Are these technologies on some of my critical assets, since I'm able to already mark those critical assets? You know, how old is the software in average? Like some of the customers have like seven years old technology, right, that IT needs to look into it. We provide some recommendations. These are the products and the hardware and the software that you should focus. You're able to understand the criticality of the software, why those are being scored, and then you're also able to understand how you could reduce your risk the most if you upgrade some of these key critical software that is end of support. And then, of course, you're able to understand by year, like which software has, you know, what vulnerabilities. So this is a report that we will be, it'll be available to all of our VMDR customers to kind of launch and create this report. And then, of course, if you want to drill into the details and slice and dice the data, you can easily do that with the system. So I'm going to go back to the presentation, please, just for the last two. Points, right? ESM. So how do we do this? External attack surface, right? How are we able to help our customers discover 30 to 40% more of their assets, even though some of these customers some of you were already using perimeter scans, for example, right? Creating ranges and then launching perimeter scans on your networks. But for those scans, you need to know those ranges first. You need to know those IP addresses, right? So the way we have done this is by leveraging kind of open source sources and solutions and integrating that with our own technology. So the first step is basically understanding all of your organization, different names, your subsidiaries, your recent M&As or mergers that have happened, right? So cataloging your company. And then from there, basically cataloging all your top level domains. And then from there, we do horizontal and vertical domain and subdomain enumeration to capture all of your subdomains. And from there, basically, we integrate with additional data sources like DNS records, WHOIS records to get all of the details, and even integrate with tools like Shodan to pull some of the vulnerabilities which are already visible and accessible to an attacker, you know, to search basically in their fingerprints about your environment. So we have a patent pending on this process, which we have filed. And then on our next release, we are integrating deeper with our kind of scanning technology, and is powered by our threat research unit to continuously prioritize the critical vulnerabilities that are affecting typically the internet-facing assets. And what this does is, instead of focusing on many kind of potential vulnerabilities that other tools or Shodan are providing, this is focusing on the actual critical vulnerabilities that really matter for you. If you have not done so yet, we have generated an ESM report based on the public data that is available in the first floor for each one of you. But if not, you can scan the QR code and we can generate a report for you, and then you can have a workshop with us to go through the data, fine-tune the catalog, etc. So the last point is about how do we operationalize, share this data so that we can communicate better with the different teams in order to fix things faster, right? So we help our customers. First of all, this is something that IT, sometimes they'll start their CMDB program, and it'll take multiple months in order to actually populate the CMDB, right? They can leverage your existing Qualys investment, your scanners, your agents, to automatically populate the CMDB if it's empty. That's like use case number one, okay? Use case number two is they already are populating their CMDB, but we can help them complement with some of the assets that are getting discovered by the passive sensors, etc. Third is we can help enrich that CMDB with additional cyber context, right? The scoring, tech debt, all of that data that I show you is going also to the CMDB. So it is accessible to IT for them to actually understand the full context of the asset when they are receiving a ticket. Why is that important? Because it helps you map the same asset with the same ID exists in your CMDB, and then when we have a different workflow to create tickets in the CMDB, they get created against an asset that already exists and that is owned by someone, and you're able to assign the details. Right? We have also expanded our Splunk app. So we have this ServiceNow integration. We have it for 7 or 8 years. Is certified. Any questions that IT has, we're usually able to help them with any questions because it's all certified, it's all integrated. And then now we have extended that with BMC. And we have also extended our Splunk integration. So all of the data that we are producing, we're able to push into those systems so they're able to search, create their own dashboards, their own KPIs that they're looking for within their processes. So let's jump into this last part. So as soon as you configure ESM, and I'll show you how simple that is, basically you start lighting up this dashboard where you will see your entire attack surface, how many of these assets are not scanning this lab and not scanning most of them, but how many are not already part of your VMDR program, how many domains, subdomains, do I have any database that is exposed directly to the internet, are there any web servers or any technology that is end of support externally facing, are there any issues with certificates, and then grabbing all of that data plus the vulnerabilities and then helping with measuring the risk with all of these different factors, understanding the geolocations, the risk per organization or subsidiary, or by a specific domain, etc. And then we take this data and we also provide this ESM confidence score. This is based on the correlation of data. So we want to be able to capture as much as possible. We don't want to miss any asset. At the same time, sometimes maybe just the DNS record matches or the DNS record is incomplete. Right? So we run an algorithm to actually score what is the confidence on that asset. Right? So you'll see that basically high confidence, medium, low. Okay, let's drill down into that. So the use case here is that for things that we already the team can confirm they're high confidence, you can simply, for example, sort by risk score. And then in this case, you're able to understand the full path of how that asset was assigned, right, based on the value. Based on the seed value was just Qualys in this example. From there, we understood that there was a subsidiary or a previous acquisition that belonged to that same company, right? And then from there, horizontal enumeration, we queried Shodan also to get some of the external vulnerabilities that they detect even before scanning with Qualys. So then we take all of this information, and similar to the previous example, we're able to measure the risk based on the vulnerabilities and the end of support software and then the ports, right? And in this case, as you see, basically Shodan is detecting like 27 different potential vulnerabilities based on banner grabbing. They will be detecting like multiple versions, but then because we have the integrated ESM scan, you have an option to flip a switch and basically run the scan automatically. It will actually confirm which vulnerability, specifically which QID is detected, right? So hence you're basically also reducing that noise or that extra work that you would have to do. And in this case, it also considered that SSH is actually open on this internet-facing asset, so that basically bumps up the risk significantly on this asset. So configuring ESM, as I mentioned, is as simple as providing the organization name and or the top-level domain. and then our catalog will do the rest. It'll automatically start detecting and discovering the assets in 24 hours. Another use case is you are about to, let's say you're assessing a risk from a potential merger or acquisition. You can easily create that as a different configuration to keep things separate. So here I'm creating a configuration. Maybe I want to scan it, maybe not yet. Depends on, I've talked to them or not yet, right? So you can scan it, or you can basically just get an inventory just based on passive data. And you can basically keep things separated. And as I mentioned, one of the key use cases that we heard from our customers is, that team is like external attack surface team. Sometimes they live in the Splunk world. So they're doing all the dashboard, all the KPIs in Splunk. So we have basically indexed all of the attributes from internal and external attack surface in Splunk. And the last, as I mentioned, we have an app from ServiceNow that you can download directly from the App Store, directly from the usual known console, and then boom, everything is basically created. Of course, it's very flexible also. You can configure which type of assets, which type of assets you want to bring, if you want to bring software or not, if you want to bring all of the ESM details. But as I mentioned, all of this data now is available to the IT team. They can do the same use case within the CMDB. They can understand all of their, for example, all of the end of support or upcoming end of support databases. They can then have this baseline layer of assets or CIs created. And then what that means is, when you look into the asset, you will have all of the business context that was managed within the CMDB, right? In this case, this supports website one and employee portal. But most importantly, when the tickets come and you create the vulnerability tickets, all of the data is created and matched exactly to that asset. There's no longer that issue of you submit for a vulnerability and then IT team is investigating what is this IP, what is that asset, who owns that asset, is not matching, the two different systems are not matching, so that problem is completely solved end to end. And we have done the exact same for BMC Helix ITSM. In fact, we have a number of customers here from UK that are working with us. This is more recent. We have launched this in the last 3 to 4 months. So we are quickly maturing this solution as well. So to summarize, right, with CSAM, you can basically discover all of your assets, internal, external. You can import or add your business context to your VMDR program. You can assess and detect security gaps beyond the vulnerabilities, like end of life and authorized software. Bring all of that into the true risk with the business context and the additional context for more accurate risk scoring. And then you can basically operationalize your workflows with IT through CMDB, through SIEM, or even through our own products, right? Ability to enable them for web application scanning, for vulnerability scanning, all within the same platform. Sumedh talked this morning already that we're going to be providing a free service for 30 days, which includes ESM. But if you want to also try the full CSAM trial, here's the QR code. We can start a trial, and then we can have a session with you to explain, to provide some of the dashboards and the best practices, and help you basically quickly get the value from the program. That's it. You have some questions? No? Thank you.